The great hall of Station Harmony floated in the darkness of space like a crystal flower. Its walls were made of clear metal that bent light into rainbow colors. Outside the massive windows, Earth hung like a blue marble against the black sky. The moon was close enough to see the gray dust on its surface. Today was important. Today was the day when all the alien species would meet to talk about Earth and humanity. They did this every year for 300 years. It was called the Earth Assessment Day. 12 different alien species had chairs in the Great Hall. Each chair was special and made for the body of each species. The tall blue Centauri had chairs that reached high into the air. The small green vegans had chairs close to the ground. The floating jellyfish-like Andromedans had no chairs at all but special energy fields where they could rest. But there was one chair that stood empty. It was the most beautiful chair in the hall, made of white stone and gold metal. It had the symbol of Earth carved into its back. A blue circle with green shapes that looked like the continents. This was the chair for Earth's representative. This was the chair for humanity. Ambassador Juan walked into the Great Hall. His blue skin was darker than most Centauri, and his forearms moved in the way that showed he was worried. He had been coming to these meetings for 40 years. Never once had the human chair been empty. "Where are they?" Juan said to himself. His voice was deep and made a humming sound like all Centauri voices did. Other delegates were arriving now. The Vegan Empire sent 3 representatives. They were small and green with big black eyes. They moved quickly on their 6 legs and whispered to each other in their clicking language. When they saw the empty chair, they stopped whispering and stared. Una floated into the hall next. She was young for an Andromedan, only 50 years old. Her body was like clear jelly with bright lights moving inside it. She could change colors, based on her feelings. Right now she was purple, which meant she was curious and worried. "The humans are not here," Una said. Her voice sounded like music played underwater. "This has never happened before. Maybe they decided they don't want to be part of our council anymore," said one of the vegan representatives. His name was Crix, and he had never liked humans much. "Maybe they finally showed their true nature." "What do you mean?" asked Una. Her color changed to orange, which meant she was getting upset. "Humans are violent," Crix said. His big black eyes looked at the empty chair. "Everyone knows this. They fight wars on their own planet. They carry weapons. Maybe they decided to stop pretending to be peaceful." Ambassador Juan made a sound like a growl. "I have worked with humans for many years. They are not what you think they are, Crix." "Then where are they?" Crix clicked back. "Why is their chair empty?" More delegates arrived. The rock-like titans rolled into the hall on their stone wheels. The bird-like ethers flew in through the high windows. The shape-shifting metamorphs took their seats looking like whatever they thought would make others comfortable today. All of them noticed the empty chair. All of them started to whisper and wonder. Far below them, on the blue planet Earth, something very different was happening. Captain Dongmin stood in the Seoul Space Command Center. He was a tall man with short black hair and serious dark eyes. He wore the blue uniform of Earth's Space Defense Force. On his chest were medals that showed he had been in many battles among the stars. The command center was full of screens and lights. Hundreds of people worked at computers, watching the space around Earth and listening for messages from far away. Usually the room was full of quiet talking and the soft sounds of machines working. Today, it was silent. "Captain," said Lieutenant Yunji. She was young and smart, with long black hair tied back in a military style. Her voice was tight with worry. "We have a problem." Dongmin turned to look at her. "Show me." Yunji touched her computer screen. A map of the galaxy appeared in the air above them. It showed all the places where humans lived. There were 47 colonies on different planets, space stations around distant stars, mining operations in asteroid fields, research bases on empty moons. All of them were red. "When did this start?" Dongmin asked. 6 hours ago, Yunji said. "The colonies started going silent one by one. No distress calls, no emergency signals, just nothing." Dongmin stared at the map. Each red dot meant thousands of people. Families, children, scientists and farmers and engineers who had left Earth to build new homes among the stars. Have we tried to contact them? Yes, sir. No response from any of them. It's like they all just stopped existing at the same time. In another part of the command center, President So-young sat in a meeting with Earth's highest leaders. She was a woman in her 60s with gray hair and kind eyes that had seen too much sadness lately. Around the table sat generals and scientists and diplomats. The Galactic Council is asking where our representative is, said Foreign Minister Tae-hyun. They're waiting for us to join the Earth assessment. We can't send anyone, So-young said quietly. Not yet. Not until we know what's happening to our people out there. The other species will think we're being rude, said General Minho. Or worse, they might think we're planning something against them. So-young looked out the window at the sky. Up there, she knew. Alien delegates were sitting around a table wondering where humanity had gone. They were looking at an empty chair and making up stories about why it was empty. Let them wonder, she said. Right now our colonies are more important than their meetings. But So-young knew something the others didn't. She had information that came from the deepest space monitoring stations. Information that made her stomach feel sick and her hands shake. The colonies weren't just silent. They were gone. And whatever had taken them was coming toward Earth. Back on Station Harmony, the Earth assessment meeting began without Earth's representative. The council leader was an ancient being called the Speaker. Nobody knew what species the Speaker was, originally. It had lived so long and changed so much that it looked like a tree made of light. When it spoke, its voice sounded like wind blowing through leaves. We gather today to discuss Earth and its people, the Speaker said. But Earth's chair is empty. This has never happened in 300 years of meetings. Maybe they're sick, suggested one of the ether delegates. The bird-like creatures were always trying to think the best of others. Maybe they're planning war, said Crix the vegan. Humans are always planning war. Ambassador Huan stood up. His forearms moved in the way that meant he wanted to speak with respect but also with strength. I have known humans for most of my life, he said. They are not simple creatures. They do not do things without good reasons. If they are not here today, there is a good reason. What reason could be good enough to insult the entire Galactic Council? Asked the Titan representative. Its voice sounded like rocks grinding together. I don't know, Juan admitted. But I think we should wait before we judge them. Yuna floated higher in the air. Her color was now deep blue, which meant she was thinking hard. What if something happened to them, she said. What if they're in trouble and that's why they can't come? The hall became quiet. This was a thought that scared everyone. If something could happen to humanity, something that could make them miss this important meeting, then maybe the same thing could happen to any of them. The empty chair seemed to stare at them all. Beautiful and lonely and full of mystery. Earth Captain Dongmin received a new message. This one was different. It came from the deepest space from monitoring stations that watched the empty darkness between galaxies. Captain, Lieutenant Unji said. Her voice was very quiet now. You need to see this. The message was short, just a few words that made everyone in the command center stop what they were doing. They're coming. President So-young read the same message in her office. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Then she made the hardest decision of her life. Earth's chair would stay empty. Not because humanity was rude or violent or planning war, but because humanity was about to face something that no species in the galaxy had ever seen before, and they would face it alone so that others wouldn't have to. Dr. Tejo floated in the zero-gravity section of Luna Station. His laboratory was built inside the moon, deep underground where the rock would protect his sensitive equipment from space radiation. The walls were covered with screens showing data from across the galaxy, numbers and charts and wave patterns that told the story of what was happening to humanity's colonies. He was a thin man with tired eyes and hands that moved quickly over his computer controls. For the past 12 hours, he had been trying to understand why 47 human settlements had all gone silent at the same time. Computer, show me the timeline again, he said. The largest screen lit up with a map of known space. Red dots marked each human colony. Blue lines showed when each one had stopped sending signals back to Earth. Colony New Sol went silent first, the computer said in a calm female voice. Then New Busan 6 minutes later. Then New Daegu. The pattern moved outward from the galactic core toward the outer rim. Taeho rubbed his forehead. Something about this pattern bothered him. It wasn't random, it was too organized, too planned. Computer, what was happening near each colony when it went silent? Analyzing, the computer said. After a moment, new information appeared on the screen. Unknown. Energy signatures detected at the edge of each system between 1 and 3 hours before communication was lost. Show me these energy signatures. The screen filled with wave patterns that looked like nothing Taeho had ever seen. They were dark and twisted, like someone had taken normal space energy and turned it inside out. Computer, compare these signatures to all known ship types in the galactic database. No matches found. These energy patterns do not match any known technology. Taeho felt a cold feeling in his stomach. In 40 years of studying alien technology, he had never seen anything like this. Meanwhile, on the farming world of New Busan, something terrible had already happened. The planet orbited a yellow star much like Earth's sun. The colonists had built their towns in green valleys between rolling hills. They grew earth crops in the rich soil and raised earth animals in wide pastures. It had been a peaceful place where families could live simple, happy lives. Wu Jin had been one of those colonists. He was a farmer who grew rice and vegetables to feed the colony. He had a wife named Hye Jin and 2 young children. His farmhouse sat on a hill where he could see the whole valley spread out below him. On the day the colony went silent, Wu Jin had been working in his fields when the sky changed. The last message from New Busan was found 3 days later by a deep space communication relay. It was Wu Jin's voice, shaky and full of fear. This is Wu Jin on New Busan. Something is wrong. The sky is getting dark, but it's the middle of the day. There are shapes up there. Big shapes like ships, but not like any ships I've ever seen. They're black and they seem to eat the light around them. There was a pause in the recording. In the background, other voices could be heard shouting and crying. They're coming down now. Oh God, they're huge. They're the size of mountains. I can see things coming out of them, like tentacles but made of metal and darkness. Hee-jin, take the children and run to the underground shelter. Run now. The message ended there. Back on Station Harmony, the Galactic Council meeting continued without Earth's representative. The empty chair seemed to grow more mysterious with each passing hour. Ambassador Huan paced back and forth in his private quarters. His forearms moved in patterns that showed he was deeply worried. As the Centauri representative, he had spent decades building friendship between his people and humanity. Now he didn't know what to think. A soft chime told him someone wanted to speak with him. Come in, he said. Yuna floated through the door. The young Andromedan was now a worried shade of gray-blue. Her jellyfish-like body pulsed with nervous energy. Ambassador Huan, I've been thinking about the humans, she said. As have I, young Yuna. What troubles you? I've been studying human behavior for my cultural analysis work. Humans are proud. They care very much about their reputation and their promises. Missing this meeting would hurt their standing with all of us. Huan nodded with 2 of his heads. This is true. So why would they do it? That's what worries me. What could be so important that they would risk making enemies of the entire Galactic Council? Before Huan could answer, both of their communication devices began beeping with an urgent message. They looked at each other with growing alarm. The message was from the Andromedan home system. Yuna's people had detected the same strange energy, signatures that Dr. Taeho was studying on Luna Station. Unknown ships were appearing at the edge of Andromedan space. It's not just the humans, Yuna whispered. Her color changed to deep purple with flashes of red. Something is happening to all of us. On Earth, Lieutenant Yunji worked without sleeping. Her fingers flew over her computer keyboard as she analyzed every piece of data coming in from deep space monitoring stations. Coffee cups sat empty around her workstation. Her eyes were red from staring at screens, but she couldn't stop working. Lieutenant, called Captain Dongmin as he approached her station. "Have you found anything new?" "Yes, sir," she said without looking away from her screens. "I've been tracking the energy signatures that appeared before each colony went silent. They're not random appearances." She touched her screen and a three-dimensional map appeared in the air between them. It showed the galaxy from above, with lines connecting each point where the unknown ships had appeared. "They're following a pattern," Yunji continued, "moving from system to system in a specific order. And Captain, if this pattern continues, we can predict where they'll appear next." Dongmin studied the map. The pattern was clear once you knew what to look for. The unknown ships were moving in a spiral, working their way from the outer edges of human space toward the center, toward Earth. "How long do we have?" he asked. Yunji did some quick calculations. "At their current rate of movement, they'll reach the edge of our solar system in 72 hours. In the president's office, So Young sat with her military advisors around a large table. The room was dark except for the glow from their computer screens. Outside the windows, Seoul sparkled with millions of lights, unaware of the danger approaching. "From space. We need to tell the Galactic Council what's happening," said Foreign Minister Tae Hyun. "This threat might be coming for all of us, not just humanity." "If we tell them, they'll want to help," said General Minho. "That could make them targets too." So Young stared at a photograph on her desk. It showed her granddaughter playing in a park, laughing as she chased butterflies. The little girl had no idea that monsters were coming from the darkness between stars. "What do our deep space scouts report?" So Young asked. "Nothing good," General Minho replied. "The few automated probes that got close to the unknown ships, before losing contact, sent back disturbing images. The ships appear to be alive somehow, like they're grown instead of built." "Alive how?" "They pulse like heartbeats. They have what look like organs inside them. And when they attack a planet, they don't just destroy it, they drain it, they take everything. All the life, all the energy, everything." So Young closed her eyes. This was worse than she had feared. Dr. Taeho made a discovery that changed everything. Deep in his laboratory on Luna Station, he had been studying the last transmissions from the lost colonies. Most were just static and screaming, but buried in the noise he found something important. Computer Enhance Audio Section 47C from the New Soul transmission. The speakers crackled with static, then cleared to reveal a voice. It belonged to Dr. Jin Woo, the colony's chief scientist. His words were rushed and desperate. "The ships are biomechanical, living metal with organic components. They're vulnerable during feeding. When they extend their drain tendrils, their outer armor retracts. That's when you can hurt them. The weak point is the connection between the tendril and the main body. Aim for the joint. Use high-energy pulse weapons if you have them." "I'm transmitting the technical specifications now." The transmission ended with the sound of something very large and very angry destroying the research station. But Dr. Jinwoo's final message had given humanity something precious. Information about the enemy. A weakness that could be exploited. "Doctor." Taeho immediately sent the data to Captain Dongmin and President So Young. For the first time since the crisis began, there was hope. Back on Station Harmony, the Galactic Council session was ending for the day. The delegates were frustrated and confused by humanity's absence. Some were angry, others were worried. As they prepared to leave, a new message arrived for all of them. It came from Earth, from President So Young herself. The message was short, but it changed everything. "To our friends in the Galactic Council, we apologize for our absence, but we have good reason. A threat approaches that endangers all life in this galaxy. We have chosen to face it alone to protect you from becoming targets. Do not look for us. Do not try to help us. Remember us as friends who chose to stand between you and the darkness." Ambassador Huan read the message 3 times. His hands were shaking by the time he finished. Humanity wasn't abandoning the council. They were protecting it. The empty chair suddenly made sense. It wasn't a sign of human arrogance or aggression. It was a sign of human sacrifice. But the question remained. What was coming that was so terrible that humanity would face it? Captain Dongmin stood on the observation deck of Earth's main orbital defense platform. Through the thick glass windows, he could see the curve of his home planet below. The blue oceans and white clouds looked peaceful from up here. It was hard to believe that something terrible was coming from the darkness of space. "Captain," Lieutenant Yunji called from behind him. "The deep space sensors are picking up something." Dongmin turned away from the beautiful view of Earth. "Show me." The main display screen lit up with a view of the outer solar system. At first, everything looked normal. The distant planets hung in their orbits like they had for billions of years. Pluto was a small dot at the edge of the screen. Then space began to change. Reality seemed to tear open like someone had cut holes in a black curtain. Through these holes came shapes that made Dongmin's eyes hurt to look at them. The ships were huge beyond imagination. Each one was the size of a small moon, dark and twisted like living nightmares. "How many?" Dongmin asked quietly. "Lieutenant." Hyunji's fingers danced over her computer controls. Numbers appeared on smaller screens around the room. Her face went pale as she read them. "Sir, the computer is having trouble counting them. There are thousands, maybe tens of thousands." More ships kept coming through the tiers in space. They moved with purpose, not randomly like objects drifting in the void. They were arranging themselves in a perfect sphere around the entire solar system. "They're surrounding us," Dongmin realized, cutting off all escape routes. On Luna Station, Dr. Teho watched the same display from his underground laboratory, but his instruments could see more than the basic sensors on the defense platform. What he saw made his hands shake as he typed his report. The ships weren't just big. They were alive. "Computer, analyze the biosignatures from the approaching fleet," he said. "Analysis complete," the computer replied. "The vessels show characteristics of living organisms. Cellular activity detected. Neural network patterns observed. These are not ships in any conventional sense." Dr. Teho pulled up the data from the lost colonies. Now he could see the full picture, and it was worse than anyone had imagined. "They're not just using biotechnology," he whispered to himself. "They are biotechnology. Living ships with living crews. Or maybe the ships and crews are the same thing." He immediately sent his findings to President So-young and Captain Dongmin. The enemy wasn't just alien. It was something that had evolved to consume entire worlds. On Station Harmony, the emergency session of the Galactic Council was in chaos. Delegates from 12 species shouted at each other in their different languages. The empty chair that had started as a mystery was now a symbol of something much darker. Ambassador Huan tried to bring order to the meeting. His forearms moved in the diplomatic gestures that meant peace and listen, but few were paying attention. "The humans knew," shouted Crix, the vegan representative. "They knew this was coming and they said nothing. They let us sit here arguing about their empty chair while death approached our worlds." "Maybe they were trying to protect us," Yuna said. Her Andromedan body flashed with colors of fear and confusion. "Their message said they wanted to face this threat alone. Protect us or protect themselves." Crix clicked back angrily. "How do we know they're not working with these creatures?" The ancient speaker raised its tree-like arms for silence. When it spoke, its voice carried the weight of centuries. "We have received reports from 7 of our member worlds. The same energy signatures that preceded the human colony attacks have been detected in our systems. This threat is not aimed only at humanity." A cold silence fell over the Great Hall. Each delegate realized that their own people might be in danger. "What do we know about these attackers?" asked the Titan representative. Its rocky voice ground like boulders falling. Yuna floated forward. She had been studying every piece of information available about the attacks. Her analysis was terrifying. Based on the pattern of attacks and the few transmissions we received, from human colonies, these beings don't conquer worlds, they consume them. Every living thing, every source of energy. They leave nothing behind but empty rock. "How is that possible?" asked one of the ether delegates. The bird-like creature's feathers were standing on end with fear. "We don't know," Yuna admitted. "But if the pattern continues, they'll reach the populated systems of all our species within weeks." On Earth, President So-young sat in the deepest bunker beneath Sol. The room was filled with screens showing the approaching fleet and the status of Earth's defenses. Around her sat the best military minds humanity had to offer, but she could see the doubt in their eyes. How long until they reach Earth, she asked. General Minho studied the tracking data. At their current speed, 6 hours until they reach the orbit of Mars, 12 hours until they're close enough to attack Earth directly. And our defenses. We have 300 ships in the defense fleet. They have thousands. Each of their ships is 50 times larger than our biggest vessel. The numbers were hopeless, but So Young had not survived 60 years of politics by giving up easily. What about Dr. Jin Woo's research from New Seoul? The information about their weakness during feeding. We've modified as many weapons as possible based on his data, said Admiral Sung Min, the head of Earth's Space Navy. But we've never tested them against a real target. We don't know if they'll work. So Young made a decision that would define humanity's future. Send a message to all human settlements and ships throughout the galaxy, not just in our solar system. Every human community on every world. Ma'am, asked General Minho, tell them to activate Protocol Phoenix. The room went quiet. Protocol Phoenix was humanity's most secret plan. Even most of the people in this room didn't know all the details. Are you sure? Asked Admiral Sung Min. Once we activate Phoenix, there's no going back. I'm sure, So Young said. It's time the galaxy knew the truth about why we built so many colonies, why we spread so far and so fast. It wasn't just to find new homes. Throughout the galaxy, human settlements that had seemed like simple farming colonies and research stations began to change. Hidden transmitters came online. Secret databases activated. Communication arrays that had been disguised as weather stations started broadcasting on frequencies that could reach every corner of known space. The human colonies hadn't just been homes. They had been nodes in the largest communication and intelligence network ever built. Back on Station Harmony, the Galactic Council received a transmission that changed everything. It came simultaneously from 47 different sources. All, the human colonies that had been thought destroyed. The colonies weren't gone. They had been consumed. But in their final moments, they had transmitted everything they learned about the enemy. Technical specifications, tactical data, biological analysis, weapon effectiveness reports. Everything purchased with the lives of millions of people. Ambassador Huan read the data with growing amazement and horror. The humans had known this threat was coming for months, maybe years. Every colony that had been attacked had been prepared to gather intelligence even as they died. They turned their own people into bait, whispered the Titan representative. No, Huan said firmly. They turned their people into heroes. Every human who died bought information that might save the rest of us. Yuna's color shifted to a deep blue of understanding and respect. That's why the chair was empty. They weren't abandoning us. They were preparing to sacrifice themselves for us. The data from the human colonies revealed the full scope of the threat. The biomechanical ships were part of a single massive organism that moved from galaxy to galaxy. It had been traveling through space for millions of years, consuming entire star systems to fuel its journey. But the data also revealed something else. The creatures had a weakness. During their feeding process, when they extended the tentacle-like organs that drained life from planets, their defenses were lowered. The joint between the feeding tentacle and the main body was vulnerable to high-energy weapons. Dr. Jinwoo from New Seoul had died, transmitting the exact specifications for weapons that could exploit this weakness. On Earth's orbital defense platform, Captain Dongmin received new orders from President So Young. They were simple but carried the weight of humanity's survival. Engage the enemy. Gather as much combat data as possible. Transmit everything to our galactic allies in real time. Lieutenant Yoon-ji looked up from her console. Sir, we can't win this fight. The odds are impossible. We're not fighting to win, Dongmin replied. We're fighting to learn. Every ship we lose will teach us something new about the enemy. Every minute we survive gives our allies more time to prepare. The biomechanical fleet had finished surrounding the solar system. Now they began to move inward, toward Earth and the billions of people who called it home. But they weren't moving randomly. They were following the same pattern they had used at every other world they had consumed. First, they would establish a blockade. Then they would send smaller ships to test the defenses. Finally, when they were sure of victory, they would begin the feeding process. What they didn't know was that humanity had been preparing for this moment. Not just preparing to fight, but preparing to die in a way that would give other species the best chance to survive. The empty chair at the Galactic Council wasn't a sign of human abs. The first biomechanical ship to attack Earth was the size of a mountain. It moved slowly through space, its dark surface pulsing with veins of sickly green light. Captain Dongmin watched it approach on his main screen. Behind it came dozens, more, each one hungry for the life energy of his planet. All ships maintain distance, he ordered into his communication device. Let them come to us. We need to see how they attack before we can fight back. Lieutenant Yunji monitored the readings from her console. Captain, I'm detecting massive energy buildup in the lead ship. It's getting ready to do something. The biomechanical ship stopped just outside Earth's orbital defense grid. For a moment, nothing happened. Then its surface began to open like a flower made of metal and flesh. From inside came something that made everyone on the defense platform step back from their screens. Tentacles. Hundreds of them, each one as thick as a city block and miles long. They reached out toward Earth with hungry purpose, stretching across the empty space between the ship and the planet. That's how they feed, Dr. Tejo said over the communication link from Luna Station. Those tentacles will drain everything. All the life, all the energy, everything that makes a planet alive. But Captain Dongmin was watching something else. Look at the ship's armor, he told his crew. It's retracting around the base of each tentacle. Lieutenant Yunji enhanced the image on her screen. You're right, sir. The armor is pulling back to make room for the feeding organs, just like Dr. Jin Wu said in his final transmission. There's our target, Dongmin said. All ships focus fire on the joint where the tentacles connect to the main body. Use the high-energy pulse weapons. The human defense fleet opened fire. Beams of concentrated energy lanced out from 300 ships, all aimed at the exposed joints of the feeding tentacles. The biomechanical ship shuddered as the weapons hit their mark. One tentacle was severed completely. It drifted away into space, leaking a substance that looked like liquid starlight. The alien ship made a sound that came through space itself, a scream of pain and rage that made every human who heard it feel sick. It worked, Lieutenant Yunji shouted. The weapons are effective. But their celebration was short-lived. The wounded biomechanical ship pulled back its remaining tentacles and closed its armor. At the same time, 20 more ships moved forward to take its place. They learn fast, Captain Dongmin observed grimly. They won't make the same mistake twice. What Captain Dongmin didn't know was that this was exactly what humanity had planned for. Deep beneath Seoul, President So-young watched the battle unfold on her command screens. Around her, the best minds of Earth's military worked at their computers, recording every detail of the engagement. Are we getting good data? She asked General Minho. Every weapon impact, every enemy response, every tactical adaptation. He replied. Our ships have orders to survive as long as possible to gather intelligence. And the transmission network. Operating at full capacity. Everything we learn is being broadcast in real time to every species in the galaxy. President So-young nodded with satisfaction. This was the real purpose of the battle, not to win, but to learn. Every human who died would teach the galaxy something new about fighting these creatures. On Station Harmony, the Galactic Council watched the battle with growing amazement. The humans were outnumbered 1,000 to 1, but they were fighting with a precision and purpose that impressed even their harshest critics. They're not trying to win, Ambassador Huan realized. They're trying to teach us how to fight. Yuna floated beside him, her body cycling through colors of awe and sadness. Every attack they make is a lesson. Every ship they lose is buying information for the rest of us. The data streaming in from the battle was incredible. Human scientists had managed to analyze the biomechanical ship's energy patterns, armor composition, and biological functions in real time. They were learning things about the enemy that would have taken years of study under normal circumstances. But the cost was terrible. Human ships were dying by the dozens. Back in Earth's orbital space, Lieutenant Yunji made a discovery that changed the entire battle. "Captain," she called out urgently, "I'm reading something strange from the enemy ships. They're not just individual vessels. They're connected somehow." "What do you mean, connected?" "Look at these energy readings. There are streams of data flowing between all the biomechanical ships. They're sharing information instantly. What one learns, they all learn." Captain Dongmin understood immediately. "That's why they adapted so quickly to our weapons. They're not separate ships. They're all part of one giant mind." This information was immediately transmitted to Dr. Tae-ho on Luna Station. The scientist's eyes widened as he read the data. "Computer, analyze the connection patterns between enemy vessels," he ordered. Analysis complete. The biomechanical fleet appears to be a single distributed organism. Individual ships function as organs or limbs of a larger entity. Dr. Taeho's hands flew over his controls as he made new calculations. If the enemy was one giant organism, then maybe it had the same weakness as smaller organisms. "Captain Dongmin," he called over the communication link, "I need you to try something. Coordinate simultaneous attacks on multiple ships. Don't spread. Your fire. Hit them all at exactly the same moment. Why? If they're all connected, then hitting them at the same time might overload their shared nervous system. Like a shock to the brain." Captain Dongmin didn't hesitate. "All ships prepare for coordinated strike. Target the nearest 20 enemy vessels. Fire on my mark." The human fleet repositioned itself quickly. Every captain knew that this might be their last chance to strike a real blow against the enemy. "Fire," Captain Dongmin ordered. 300 human ships fired at once. Beams of energy converged on 20 biomechanical vessels simultaneously. The effect was immediate and dramatic. All of the enemy ships convulsed as if in pain. The green lights that pulsed through their hulls flickered and dimmed. Several ships collided with each other as their coordination was disrupted. It worked. Lieutenant Unji cheered. The coordinated attack confused their shared mind. But the victory was temporary. The biomechanical fleet quickly adapted again, changing their connection patterns to prevent similar attacks. However, the damage was done. Dr. Taeho had learned something crucial about the enemy's nature. He immediately began working on new weapon designs that could exploit this weakness. Meanwhile, something unexpected was happening throughout the galaxy. On the Centauri homeworld, Ambassador Huan's government received the battle data from Earth. Centauri scientists immediately began building weapons based on human discoveries. In the Andromedan systems, Yuna's people used their advanced technology to improve on human weapon designs. Even the Vegans, who had never trusted humanity, recognized the value of the intelligence Earth was providing. But the most important development came from an unexpected source. Deep in the archives of the ancient Titan civilization, scholars discovered references to creatures matching the description of the biomechanical ships. The Titans were the oldest known species in the galaxy, and their records went back millions of years. The ancient texts spoke of the devourers that came from the darkness between galaxies. They had attacked the galaxy twice before in the distant past. Both times they had been defeated not by superior weapons but by species working together. The key was unity. The devourers were strongest when facing divided enemies. But when all the species of the galaxy fought as one, sharing information and coordinating attacks, the devourers could be beaten. This information reached President So Young just as the Yam battle for Earth was reaching its climax. She read the ancient Titan records with growing hope. "General Minho," she called, "send a message to the Galactic Council. Tell them we need to coordinate a galaxy-wide defense. Every species fighting, together at the same time. Ma'am, our fleet is almost destroyed. We might not survive long enough to coordinate anything." "That's exactly why we need to do this now," So Young replied, "while we still can." The message went out to every member of the Galactic Council. Earth was calling for something that had never been attempted before, a unified military command representing all the species of the galaxy. On Station Harmony, Ambassador Juan stood before the emergency assembly. "The humans have shown us how to fight these creatures," he said. "But they've also shown us something more important. They've shown us what it means to sacrifice for others. The empty chair isn't empty anymore. It's filled with the courage of every human who chose to die so that we might live." The vote was unanimous. For the first time in galactic history, all the species would fight as one. The final battle was about to begin, and humanity's sacrifice had given the galaxy its only chance for survival. But first, they had to survive long enough to see it happen. Above, Earth, the last human ships prepared for one final stand, knowing that their deaths would light the way for every other species in the galaxy. Captain Dongmin's ship shook as another biomechanical vessel fired at him. Through his cracked window, he could see Earth hanging in space like a blue jewel. His home looked so peaceful from here, but he knew that billions of people below were counting on him and the few remaining human ships. "Captain, we're down to 30 ships," Lieutenant Yunji reported. Her voice was calm even though her console was sparking from battle damage. "The enemy has over 2,000 vessels still active." "How long until the galactic fleet arrives?" Dongmin asked. "Unknown, sir. But we need to hold out until they get here." Dongmin looked at his crew. These were good people. They all knew. They probably wouldn't survive the next hour, but none of them showed fear. They had a job to do. "All ships form defensive circle around Earth," he ordered. "Make every shot count." Far away on Station Harmony, Ambassador Juan stood in the Great Hall where the Galactic Council had met for centuries. But today it looked different. The hall was full of military officers from every species in the galaxy. Centauri generals with their forearms worked alongside Vegan tactical experts with their 6 legs. Andromedan strategists floated next to Titan engineers. At the center of it all sat the chair that had started everything. The beautiful white and gold chair with Earth symbol carved into its back. It was still empty, but now everyone understood. Why? "The human fleet is down to their last few ships," reported a Centauri communications officer. "They can't hold out much longer." "How long until our combined fleet reaches Earth?" Juan asked. 4 hours, replied Admiral Kethvar, the senior military commander from the Titan homeworld. "We're pushing our engines as hard as we can, but space is vast." Yuna floated up to the empty chair. Her jellyfish-like body was glowing with determination. "They're buying us time with their lives," she said softly. "Every minute they survive gives us a better chance to arrive in time." "And they're still transmitting battle data," added a Vegan scientist. "Even as they die, they're teaching us how to fight more effectively." On Earth, Dr. Tejo worked frantically in his Luna Station laboratory. The data coming from the battle was incredible. With each passing minute, he learned more about the biomechanical ships and how to defeat them. "Computer, analyze the latest weapon effectiveness data," he ordered. Analysis complete. Coordinated attacks on multiple vessels continued to disrupt their shared consciousness. Effectiveness increases with the number of simultaneous targets. "Doctor." Tejo smiled grimly. The humans had discovered the enemy's greatest weakness. The biomechanical ships were strongest when they could think and act as one mind. But if you could disrupt that connection by attacking many ships at once, they became confused and vulnerable. "Send this data to the Galactic Fleet immediately," he told his computer. "They'll need to coordinate attacks across hundreds of ships." President So-Young sat in her bunker deep beneath Seoul, watching the battle unfold on her screens. Around her, the surviving members of Earth's government worked to coordinate with the approaching Galactic Fleet. "Ma'am," said General Minho, "we're receiving a message from the Galactic Fleet Commander. They want to know our battle plan." So-Young looked at the tactical display. The biomechanical ships were arranged in perfect formation around Earth, like predators circling their prey. But she could see something the enemy couldn't. "Tell them this," she said. "The biomechanical ships expect us to fight like separate species. That's how they've always won before. But we're not going to fight as humans and Centauri and vegans. We're going to fight as one people, one galaxy, one family." Above Earth, Captain Dongmin received the battle plan from the Galactic Fleet. It was the most complex military operation ever attempted. Ships from 12 different species would attack in perfect coordination, hitting hundreds of biomechanical vessels at exactly the same moment. "It's impossible," Lieutenant Yunji said after reading the plan. "The timing has to be perfect down to the millisecond. One species fighting alongside so many others, using different weapons and different tactics." "The humans thought their colonies were impossible too," Dongmin replied. "But they built them anyway. Sometimes impossible things happen when people work together." The galactic fleet began arriving at the edge of Earth's solar system. Captain Dongmin had never seen anything so beautiful. Ships from every corner of the galaxy came through hyperspace in perfect formation. Sleek Centauri cruisers flew alongside, the massive fortress ships of the Titans. Andromedan vessels that looked like living clouds of light moved with vegan fighters that darted like silver insects. "This is Admiral Kethvar to all ships," came the voice over the communication system. "We are here because the humans showed us what it means to sacrifice for others. Today we fight not as separate species, but as one united galaxy." The biomechanical ships detected the arriving fleet and began to reorganize themselves. They had faced individual species before and always won, but they had never faced anything like this. "All ships prepare for coordinated strike," Admiral Kethvar ordered. "Target selection based on human tactical data. Remember, we attack as one or we fail as many." Captain Dong Min positioned his battered ship alongside a massive Titan vessel. "It's an honor to fight with you," he said to the Titan captain. "The honor is ours," the Titan replied in its grinding voice. "Your people taught us courage." Dr. Tejo watched from Luna Station as the largest space battle in galactic history was about to begin. Over 3,000 ships from 12 species faced off against 2,000 biomechanical vessels. "Computer, monitor all battle data," he ordered. "This is the most important moment in galactic history." "Understood. Recording all combat information for future analysis." "All ships fire," Admiral Kethvar commanded. The space around Earth exploded with light. Thousands of weapons fired at once, all aimed at the biomechanical fleet. Centauri energy beams crossed, with vegan plasma bolts. Andromedan gravity weapons worked alongside Titan mass drivers. Human pulse weapons fired in perfect harmony with alien technology. The effect on the biomechanical ships was devastating. Hit simultaneously across their entire fleet, their shared consciousness was completely disrupted. Ships that had moved in perfect coordination suddenly began colliding with each other. The green lights that pulsed through their hulls flickered and went dark. "It's working," Lieutenant Yunji shouted. "Their formation is breaking apart." But the biomechanical ships were not finished. They began to adapt again, trying to restore their connections. Some of the larger vessels started combining with smaller ones, creating even bigger threats. "They're merging," Dr. Tejo observed from his monitors, "trying to create a single massive organism. Then we hit them again before they can finish," Admiral Kethvar decided. "All ships, second coordinated strike. Target the merging vessels." The galactic fleet fired again. This time, the biomechanical ships couldn't adapt fast enough. The merging process was interrupted, leaving them even more vulnerable than before. One by one, the biomechanical ships began to retreat. They pulled back from Earth, moving toward the edge of the solar system. For the first time in millions of years, they had encountered something they couldn't consume. "They're leaving," Captain Dongmin said in amazement. "We actually beat them." "Not just beat them," Admiral Kethvar corrected. "We taught them that this galaxy is protected, that we stand together." As the last biomechanical ship disappeared into the darkness between stars, something remarkable happened on Station Harmony. The delegates from all 12 species gathered in the Great Hall where the Galactic Council met. At the center of the room sat the empty chair that had started everything. Ambassador Huan stepped forward and spoke to the assembly. "This chair has been empty for days," he said. "We thought it meant the humans had abandoned us, but we were wrong. The chair was never empty. It was filled with the courage of every human who chose to sacrifice themselves for strangers. It was filled with the wisdom of a species that knew the only way to win was to bring us all together." Yuna floated up to the chair. Her body glowed with every color of joy and respect. "This chair doesn't belong to just the humans anymore," she said. "It belongs to all of us. It's the chair of unity." The chair of sacrifice. The chair of hope, added the Titan representative. President So Young received the news of victory in Nikemindar, her bunker beneath Seoul. For the first time in weeks, she smiled. Her granddaughter would grow up in a galaxy where different species worked together instead of fighting apart. The empty chair was never about absence, she said to her advisors. It was about presence, the presence of the idea that we're all stronger together. Captain Dongmin and Lieutenant Eunji stood on their damaged ship looking out at Earth. Their planet was safe, but more importantly, the galaxy was united. The colonies, Eunji said quietly. All those people who died to gather intelligence about the enemy. Do you think they knew their sacrifice would lead to this? I think they hoped, Dongmin replied. That's what humans do. We hope for things that seem impossible. Dr. Taeho finished his final report from Luna Station. The data from the battle would help protect the galaxy for generations to come. But the most important discovery wasn't about weapons or tactics. Computer, add this to the historical record, he said. The greatest weapon in the galaxy isn't technology,